You need to understand your place now, mother. Those were the words my son used. My son, the child I had carried in my body, the baby I had nursed through fevers and nightmares, the man I had sacrificed everything to raise. He looked at me like I was a tenant who had overstayed her welcome. We were standing in my living room, in my house, and my son Reginald was speaking to me like I was a stranger who had wandered in off the street. Things are going to change around here, he continued. Denise and I have discussed it. We think it is time for you to start contributing or start considering other arrangements. Contributing, other arrangements. I had lived in this house for 51 years. I had paid off the mortgage with my own hands, working double shifts as a nurse for 3 decades. I had raised 3 children in these rooms, buried my husband from this porch, built a life between these walls. And now my son was telling me I needed to understand my place. What kind of contribution are you expecting? I asked quietly. Well, for starters, the property taxes are due next month, and the utility bills have been piling up. Denise thinks it would be fair if you covered those expenses, since you are living here rent-free. Rent-free, in my own home. I looked past Reginald to where his wife Denise stood in the doorway. She had her arms crossed, a satisfied smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She did not even have the decency to hide her pleasure at watching my son put me in my place. And if I choose not to contribute, I asked. Reginald's face hardened. Then we will have to make some difficult decisions. This house is expensive to maintain. If everyone is not pulling their weight, something has to give. Something has to give. He meant me. I was the something. I looked at my son, this man I had raised, this man I had loved unconditionally for 53 years, and I saw a stranger staring back at me. No, worse than a stranger. An enemy. I stayed quiet. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I did not remind him that this was my house, my property, my life. I just nodded slowly. I understand, Reginald. I will think about what you have said. He seemed surprised by my calm response. He had expected a fight. He had prepared arguments and justifications. My silence threw him off balance. Good, he said after a moment. I am glad we can be reasonable about this. Reasonable. As if demanding rent from your 76-year-old mother in her own home was reasonable. Denise stepped forward, her smirk widening. We knew you would understand, Mother Crawford. Family has to work together after all. Family. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. Of course, Denise, family. They left shortly after, satisfied that they had put me in my place. I watched from the window as they drove away, their expensive car disappearing down the street. And then I sat down in my chair and let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. My son had spoken to me like a stranger. He had demanded money from me in my own home. He had threatened to make difficult decisions if I did not comply. And he had done it all with his wife watching, smiling, enjoying every moment. They thought I was broken. That was their first mistake. My name is Delphine Marigold Ashford. I am 76 years old. I have lived in this house since I was 25, when my husband Isaiah and I scraped together every penny we had to make the down payment. Isaiah passed 12 years ago, cancer. It took him slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but memories and an empty space in my bed. After he died, I thought about selling the house. It was too big for one person, too full of ghosts, but something kept me here. Stubbornness, maybe, or loyalty to the life we had built together. I should have sold it. I should have taken the money and moved somewhere smaller, somewhere my children could not reach me. But I did not, and now I was paying the price. Let me tell you about my children. I have 3. Reginald is the oldest, 53 years old. He was always ambitious, always hungry for more. He married Denise 15 years ago, a woman who saw our family as a ladder to climb rather than a home to belong to. My daughter Claudette is the middle child, 49 years old. She lives in California now, as far from this family as she could get. We talk on the phone sometimes, but she has her own life, her own problems. And then there is my youngest, Isaiah Jr. We call him Junior. He is 45, the baby of the family. He was always the sensitive one, the one who felt things deeply. He still lives nearby, but I have not seen him much lately. Reginald and he had a falling out years ago, and the family has been divided ever since. When my husband died, he left everything to me. The house, the savings, the small investments he had made over the years. It was not a fortune, but it was security. It was supposed to take care of me for the rest of my life. But somewhere along the way, Reginald decided that what was mine should be his. And now he was making his move. Now, if you are still with me, I need you to understand something. What happened in my living room that day was not the beginning. It was just the moment when the mask finally slipped. The moment when my son stopped pretending and showed me who he really was. The real scheme had been building for years, and I was only just beginning to understand how deep it went. If you want to know what I discovered, how I fought back, then subscribe to this channel. Press that button. It costs nothing, but it tells me you want to hear how this ends. Press the like button too. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss what comes next. And drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Tell me if someone has ever spoken to you like you did not matter, like your whole life meant nothing. I want to know I am not alone. Now, let me continue. The confrontation with Reginald was on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I had begun my investigation. I started with the property records. I went to the county assessor's office and requested copies of everything related to my house, the deed, the tax history, any liens or encumbrances. What I found made my blood run cold. There was a second mortgage on my property, taken out 3 years ago, for $200,000. I had never signed for a second mortgage. I had never agreed to use my house as collateral for anything. But there it was, in black and white, my name on the documents, my signature on the dotted line. Except it was not my signature. It was close, someone had practiced, had studied my handwriting, but it was not mine. Someone had forged my name and taken out a loan against my house. And I had a very good idea who. That was the moment I understood the full scope of what was happening. Reginald was not just trying to push me out of my home. He had already started stealing from me. He had forged my signature, taken money against my property, and now he was trying to force me to pay for his theft. The demand for contributions made sense now. The property taxes, the utility bills, he needed me to pay because he had already drained the equity from my home. He was using my money to cover the payments on a loan I never agreed to. And if I refused to pay, he would push me out and sell the house to cover his debts. It was brilliant in a terrible way, cruel and calculated. But he had made one mistake. He had assumed I would not find out. I did not confront him. I stayed quiet, on purpose. I needed to understand the full picture before I made any moves. I needed to know who else was involved, how deep the conspiracy went, and what other traps might be waiting for me. So I smiled when Reginald called to check on me. I nodded when Denise stopped by to remind me that the property taxes were due. I played the role of the confused old woman who did not understand what was happening. But inside, I was planning. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. My neighbor, Gladys Okonkwo, had been watching my house. Not in a suspicious way, Gladys was 82 years old, sharp as a razor, and she watched everything on our street. "Delphine, I need to talk to you about something," she said when I stopped by her porch for our usual afternoon tea. "What is it, Gladys?" "Your son, Reginald. He has been coming to your house when you are not there." "What do you mean?" "I mean he lets himself in with a key, and he stays for hours sometimes, going through things. I have seen him carrying boxes out to his car." Boxes? My son had been removing things from my house without my knowledge. "How long has this been going on?" "Months, maybe longer. I did not think much of it at first. He is your son, after all. But something about it did not sit right. The way he looked around before going in. The way he waited until your car was gone. I felt sick. Thank you for telling me, Gladys. Is everything all right, Delphine? I do not know, but I intend to find out. That evening, I searched my house. I went through every drawer, every closet, every box in the attic. I looked for what was missing, what had been moved, what had been taken. The list was devastating. My husband's coin collection, gone. The antique jewelry my mother had left me, gone. The savings bonds Isaiah had purchased decades ago, gone. And most importantly, the documents I had kept in my bedroom safe. My will, my property deed, my financial records, all gone. Replaced with copies, forgeries designed to look like the originals. My son had not just taken out a loan against my house. He had systematically looted my home, stolen my valuables, and replaced my legal documents with fakes. He had been erasing my life, piece by piece. And he thought I had not noticed. I called my daughter Claudette that night. Mama, what is wrong? It is late there. Claudette, I need to ask you something. Has Reginald contacted you about the house? About my estate? There was a long pause. Mama, what is going on? Just answer the question, baby. Yes, he called me a few months ago. He said you were getting confused, that you needed help managing things. He wanted me to sign something, a power of attorney, I think. He said it was just a precaution. Did you sign it? No, something felt wrong about it. I told him I wanted to talk to you first, but he got angry, said I was being difficult. We have not spoken since. I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. Good girl, do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. And Claudette, do not tell Reginald we talked. Mama, you are scaring me. What is happening? Your brother is trying to steal everything I have, and I am going to stop him. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Oyelaran. She specialized in elder law, estates, guardianship, financial exploitation. I had found her through careful research, looking for someone with no connections to my family. Mrs. Ashford, what you are describing is criminal, Patricia said after I laid out everything I had discovered. Forgery, theft, fraud, your son could go to prison for this. I know, but I need evidence, real evidence that will hold up in court. We can get that. We can subpoena the loan documents, compare signatures, trace the money. If your son forged your signature, forensic analysis will prove it. What about the items he took from my house? That is harder. Unless you have photographs or appraisals, it becomes your word against his. I have photographs. My husband was meticulous. He documented everything we owned for insurance purposes. Then we have a case. But Mrs. Ashford, I have to warn you, this will be ugly. Your son, your family, this will tear everything apart. I thought about Reginald, about the man he had become, about the way he had looked at me in my own living room, telling me to understand my place. It is already torn apart, Patricia. I am just finally seeing the pieces. 2 weeks later, Reginald came to visit again. This time, he brought reinforcements. Denise was there, of course, but he also brought a man I did not recognize, middle-aged, expensive suit, carrying a briefcase. Mother, this is Dr. Alan Pemberton. He is a specialist in geriatric care. A doctor. They had brought a doctor. What kind of specialist? I asked carefully. He helps families assess the needs of elderly relatives, make sure they are getting the care they need. I looked at Dr. Pemberton. He had the practiced smile of a man who did this often, came into people's homes, and provided the opinions families needed to take control. I see. And what exactly are you assessing, Dr. Pemberton? Just some routine questions, Mrs. Ashford. Cognitive function, daily living activities, that sort of thing. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about, except they were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. I understood now. The forged loan was not enough. Reginald needed legal control over my affairs. He needed guardianship. And to get that, he needed a doctor to say I could not take care of myself. Very well, I said calmly. Ask your questions. I gave Dr. Pemberton exactly what he was looking for. I hesitated before answering simple questions. I pretended to forget common words. I repeated myself, lost track of the conversation, seemed confused about dates and times. Reginald watched with barely concealed satisfaction. Denise smiled her cruel smile. They thought they were winning. They thought I was playing into their hands. But I was playing a different game entirely. After they left, I called Patricia. They brought a doctor. He evaluated me for competency. And I gave him what they wanted. I acted confused. Delphine, why would you do that? Because I needed them to believe their plan is working. I needed them to get comfortable, to stop being careful. That is a dangerous strategy. If this doctor files a report saying you are incompetent, then we counter with our own evaluation, an independent assessment from a psychiatrist you trust, someone who will document that I am completely competent. And the conflicting reports will prove that Dr. Pemberton was biased, that he was hired to produce a specific result, that his findings cannot be trusted. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You are smarter than your son gives you credit for. He has no idea what I am capable of, and by the time he finds out, it will be too late. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The same room where Reginald had told me to understand my place. The same room where he had spoken to me like a stranger. I thought about everything I had discovered. The forged loan, the stolen valuables, the replaced documents, the incompetency scheme. My son was not just disrespecting me. He was systematically destroying me, taking everything I had built over 76 years and claiming it for himself. And he thought I did not know. That was his mistake, his fatal, irreversible mistake. I stayed quiet on purpose. Not because I was weak, not because I was afraid, not because I did not understand what was happening. I stayed quiet because silence was my weapon. Patience was my strategy, and when I finally spoke, I was going to make sure my voice was the last one standing. 3 days later, I discovered something that changed everything. Something that revealed the true depth of my son's betrayal. Something that made everything else look like child's play. And when I found it, I knew there was no going back. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The discovery came 3 days later. I was going through an old filing cabinet in my basement, one I had not touched in years. I was looking for the original insurance documents Isaiah had created, the photographs of our valuables that would prove what Reginald had stolen. I found the photographs, but I found something else too. A folder I did not recognize, thick with papers, hidden behind the insurance files like someone wanted it forgotten. I opened it and began to read. And my world fell apart. The folder contained letters, dozens of them, written over the span of 15 years. Letters between my husband Isaiah and a woman named Marlene. Love letters. The first one was dated 23 years ago. Isaiah wrote about meeting her at a conference, about feeling a connection he had not felt in years, about knowing it was wrong but not being able to stop. The letters continued for years. They talked about secret meetings, hotel rooms, phone calls when I was at work, a hidden life I had never suspected. And then, 12 years ago, just before Isaiah died, the letters changed. Marlene wrote to Isaiah about their son. Their son. My husband had fathered a child with another woman, a boy named Marcus, 12 years old when Isaiah died, 24 years old now. And according to the letters, Isaiah had been sending money to support him, $10,000 a year for 12 years. $120,000. Money I never knew about, money that came from our savings, money that explained why there was never quite as much as I expected when Isaiah passed. I sat on the cold basement floor, surrounded by evidence of my husband's betrayal, and I wept. But I did not weep for long. Because as I read further, I found something else, something that connected Isaiah's secret to Reginald's scheme. A letter from 5 years ago, not from Marlene, from Reginald. Written to Marcus. Brother, I know this is difficult to accept. Our father kept you hidden for too long, but you deserve your share of what he left behind. Mother does not know about you, and it needs to stay that way. But I have a plan, a way to make sure you get what is rightfully yours. Be patient. When the time is right, we will both benefit. Brother, Reginald knew. He had known for years. And he was working with Marcus to take what was mine. That was the moment everything crystallized. This was not just about Reginald's greed. This was about a secret family I never knew existed. A half-brother my children had hidden from me. A conspiracy that stretched back years. Reginald was not just stealing from me. He was planning to share my estate with a stranger, the product of my husband's betrayal. And he had kept this secret for at least 5 years, waiting for the right moment to strike. I did not argue. I remembered. Every strange look Reginald had given me over the years. Every time he had asked probing questions about my finances. Every time he had suggested I was getting confused or forgetful. He had been laying the groundwork, building his case, waiting for me to become vulnerable enough to exploit. And now I understood why. It was not just greed, it was guilt. Some twisted sense of justice for the brother he felt I had wronged by not knowing about him. But I had not wronged Marcus. I had not known he existed. Isaiah had wronged me, and now Reginald was compounding that betrayal 100-fold. I took the folder to Patricia the next morning. She read through everything in silence, her face growing more troubled with each page. Delphine, this changes things significantly. I know. Your husband's affair, the child, the payments, and Reginald's letter to Marcus, this suggests a long-term conspiracy to defraud you. That is exactly what it is. But there is a complication. If Marcus is your husband's biological son, he may have a legal claim to part of the estate. Even though Isaiah never acknowledged him publicly, never put him in his will. Potentially, it depends on the state laws regarding inheritance by illegitimate children. We would need to research it. And if he does have a claim, then Reginald may be trying to accelerate that claim by taking control of your assets. If he becomes your guardian, he can distribute the estate however he wants, including to Marcus. I sat back, absorbing this. So Reginald is not just stealing from me. He is trying to give my property to my husband's illegitimate son. It appears that way, and he is using forgery, fraud, and incompetency proceedings to do it. Can we stop him? Patricia nodded slowly. We can, but we need to move carefully. We need evidence that Marcus and Reginald are working together. We need to prove the conspiracy, and we need to do it before Reginald files for guardianship. How long do we have? Based on the doctor's visit, I would estimate he will file within the next few weeks. Maybe sooner if he senses something is wrong. Then we move quickly. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Patricia arranged for an independent psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Amara Oyalaran, a specialist with 30 years of experience and no connection to my family. The evaluation was thorough. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, interviews about my daily life. The results were definitive. Mrs. Ashford, you are one of the sharpest 76-year-olds I have ever evaluated, Dr. Oyalaran told me. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is clear. There is no evidence of cognitive impairment whatsoever. Will you testify to that in court? Absolutely. And if Dr. Pemberton's report says otherwise, I will make sure the judge understands exactly how questionable his findings are. While Patricia prepared the legal defense, I worked on gathering evidence. I contacted a forensic accountant, a woman named Sandra Chen who specialized in tracing hidden assets. I gave her access to everything: my bank records, the forged loan documents, the letters about Isaiah's payments to Marlene. Mrs. Ashford, this is a sophisticated scheme, Sandra told me after a week of analysis. The money from the second mortgage, $200,000, was transferred through 3 different accounts before ending up in a business registered to your son Reginald and a man named Marcus Ashford. Marcus Ashford, He took my husband's name. It appears so. They have been business partners for at least 4 years, a real estate development company. But from what I can see, the company has not developed anything. It is a shell, a way to move money around without drawing attention. So Reginald stole $200,000 from my home equity and gave it to himself and Marcus. Essentially, yes, and there may be more. I am still tracing several other transactions that look suspicious. They thought time was on their side. They had no idea I was using that time against them. 1 week before Reginald was expected to file for guardianship, I made a phone call. To Junior, my youngest son, the one who had been estranged from the family for years. "Mama, is everything okay?" "No, baby, it is not. I need to see you, today if possible." "What is wrong?" "It is about your brother, and something I just discovered about your father. Can you come?" There was a long pause. "I will be there in 2 hours." Junior arrived looking older than I remembered. He was 45 now, but he carried himself like a man who had seen too much. We sat in my living room, the same room where Reginald had told me to understand my place, and I told him everything. The forged loan, the stolen valuables, the incompetency scheme, the letters about Isaiah's affair, Marcus, the conspiracy. Junior listened in silence, his face growing darker with each revelation. "I knew Reginald was selfish," he finally said, "but this is evil." "Did you know about Marcus?" "No, I had no idea Daddy had another child." "Did you know Reginald, and you had a falling out because of something like this?" Junior looked at me with anguished eyes. "Mama, I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago." "What is it?" "The reason Reginald and I stopped speaking. It was not because of some petty argument. It was because I found out he was stealing from you." My heart stopped. "What?" "5 years ago, I was visiting and I saw him going through your files, taking documents. I confronted him and he admitted he was planning something. He said Daddy had made mistakes and he was going to fix them. He said I could either help or get out of the way." "And you chose to get out of the way." The shame on Junior's face was answer enough. "I should have told you, I should have stopped him, but I was scared. Reginald has always been stronger than me, more ruthless. I told myself it was not my business, that you would figure it out eventually. But I did not figure it out, not for 5 years." "I know, and I am so sorry, Mama, I failed you." I looked at my youngest son, this man who had known the truth and stayed silent, who had chosen his own comfort over his mother's safety. But he was here now. He had come when I called, and he was the only family I had left who was not actively trying to destroy me. "You did fail me, Junior, but you can make it right." "How?" "By helping me stop your brother, by testifying to what you saw, by standing with me when this goes to court." "I will do anything, Mama, whatever you need." "Then we have work to do." 3 days before Reginald was expected to file, I invited him for dinner. It was a risk. Patricia had advised against it, but I needed to see his face one more time before everything exploded. He arrived with Denise, both of them dressed nicely, both of them wearing masks of concern. "Mama, you look tired," Reginald said as he kissed my cheek. "Are you sleeping well?" "As well as can be expected." "We worry about you, all alone in this big house." "I am sure you do." I cooked dinner, pot roast, his favorite. I served wine and made small talk about the weather, the neighborhood, anything except what was really happening. And then, over dessert, I asked the question I had been waiting to ask. "Reginald, do you remember a boy named Marcus?" The fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Marcus?" "Yes, Marcus Ashford. I believe he is your business partner." Denise's face went pale. Reginald set down his fork. "How do you know about Marcus?" "I found the letters, your father's letters to his mother, and your letter to Marcus, the one where you called him brother." The room was silent. "Mama." "I know everything, Reginald, the affair, the child, the money Isaiah sent for years, and I know what you have been planning. I leaned forward, my voice calm and controlled. I know about the forged loan. I know about the stolen valuables. I know about Dr. Pemberton and the incompetency scheme. I know you have been working with Marcus to take everything I have. Reginald's face hardened. You do not understand. I understand perfectly. You decided that your father's mistakes entitled you to my property. You decided that a child I never knew about deserved more than the mother who sacrificed everything for you. Marcus is family. He deserved to know where he came from. He deserved his share. His share of what? Of my house, my savings, my life's work. Of what Daddy left behind. Your father left everything to me. That was his choice, and you decided to steal it. Denise stood up abruptly. We should go, Reginald. Yes, I agreed. You should, but before you do, I want you to know something. I stood and faced my son. I stayed quiet when you told me to understand my place. I stayed quiet when you brought a doctor to declare me incompetent. I stayed quiet through all of your scheming and plotting. My voice was steady. But I was not surrendering. I was preparing. I have evidence of everything you have done. The forged signatures, the stolen money, the conspiracy with Marcus. I have forensic accountants tracing every dollar. I have an independent psychiatrist ready to testify that I am completely competent. Reginald's face went white. Mama, please, we can work this out. No, we cannot. You spoke to me like a stranger. You treated me like an obstacle to be removed. You tried to steal my home, my security, my dignity. I walked to the front door and opened it. Now get out of my house, and do not come back. Reginald and Denise left without another word. The battle lines were drawn, the evidence was gathered, the trap was set. But what I did not know, what I could not have anticipated, was the move Reginald would make next. A move so desperate, so dangerous, that it would put everything at risk, including my life. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The call came at 3 in the morning. I was deep in sleep when my phone rang, that jarring sound that always means something terrible has happened. Mrs. Ashford, this is Officer Darnell Williams with the police department. There has been an incident at your property. I sat up, my heart pounding. What kind of incident? Someone attempted to break into your home. Your alarm system triggered, and the response team arrived to find 2 men fleeing the scene. They were apprehended. Who were they? We are still processing them at the station. But ma'am, one of them had a key to your house, and he was carrying documents, legal documents, with your name on them. I closed my eyes. Reginald. It had to be Reginald. I will be down to the station within the hour. The police station was harsh and bright at 4 in the morning. Officer Williams met me in the lobby. He was a young man, professional and serious, with eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Ashford, thank you for coming. I need to ask you some questions about the 2 men we apprehended. Of course. The first man identified himself as Reginald Ashford. He claims to be your son. Is that correct? Yes, he is my son. And the second man identified himself as Marcus Ashford. He claims to be your stepson. He is not my stepson. He is my late husband's illegitimate child. I only learned of his existence 2 weeks ago. Officer Williams' eyebrows rose. I see. Can you explain why these 2 men would be attempting to enter your home at 2:30 in the morning? I can, but it is a long story. I have time. I told Officer Williams everything. The confrontation where Reginald demanded money, the forged loan on my property, the stolen valuables, the incompetency scheme, the letters revealing Isaiah's affair and Marcus's existence, the conspiracy between Reginald and Marcus to take my estate. Williams listened carefully, taking notes. Mrs. Ashford, do you have documentation to support these allegations? I have a folder 6 inches thick with evidence. My lawyer has copies. So does a forensic accountant who has been tracing the stolen money. And the documents the men were carrying. I would very much like to see them. Williams hesitated. Technically, that is evidence, but given the circumstances. He led me to a room where the confiscated items were laid out on a table. There were 2 folders. One contained what looked like power of attorney documents, with my signature forged at the bottom. The other contained medical reports from Dr. Pemberton, declaring me mentally incompetent and recommending immediate guardianship. They had come to execute their plan, tonight, while I slept. They were going to use these forged documents to take legal control of my life. Mrs. Ashford, based on what you have told me and what we have recovered, this appears to be a case of attempted elder abuse, forgery, and fraud. What happens now? Both men are being held. Given the evidence, we will be recommending charges, but the district attorney will make the final decision. Can I see my son? Williams looked at me with surprise. Are you sure that is wise? I need to look him in the eye. I need to understand how the child I raised became capable of this. Williams nodded slowly. 5 minutes through the glass. The holding area was cold and institutional. Reginald sat on a metal bench, his expensive clothes rumpled, his face a mask of barely contained rage. When he saw me approach the glass, something flickered in his eyes. Not shame, not remorse. Fear. Mama. Reginald. This is not what it looks like. It is exactly what it looks like. You came to my house in the middle of the night with forged documents to take control of my life. We were just going to. To what? Declare me incompetent while I slept. Have me committed before I could fight back. He had no answer. I want to understand something, Reginald. I need to understand. How could you do this to me, after everything I sacrificed for you? He looked at me then, really looked, and what I saw in his eyes was not guilt or love or even greed. It was resentment. You want to know why? Because you never saw me. You never appreciated what I did for this family. You and Daddy, you were always so wrapped up in each other in your perfect little life. You never noticed that I was drowning. Drowning, we gave you everything. You gave me expectations, pressure, a standard I could never live up to, and when Daddy died, you got everything, the house, the money, the security, while I was struggling to keep my head above water. So you decided to steal from me. I decided to take what should have been mine in the first place. I stared at my son, this stranger wearing a familiar face. And Marcus, how does he fit into your self-pity? Reginald's jaw tightened. Marcus understands he was abandoned, forgotten, Daddy's dirty secret, he deserved something, we both did. So you partnered with a man I never knew existed to steal from your own mother. That is your justification. I do not need to justify anything to you. I stepped back from the glass. You are right, you do not. The courts will decide what you deserve. I just needed to hear it from your own mouth. Mama. Do not call me that. You lost the right to call me that when you decided I was worth more as a victim than as a mother. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Reginald called out, but I did not look back. There was nothing left to say. The next few days were a whirlwind. The district attorney's office moved quickly once they saw the evidence. Reginald and Marcus were charged with attempted fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and attempted elder abuse. Dr. Pemberton was charged separately for providing false medical documentation. His license was suspended pending investigation. Denise, remarkably, was not charged. She claimed she had no knowledge of the break-in plan, and there was no evidence to contradict her. But her marriage to Reginald was clearly over. She filed for divorce within the week. And through it all, I stayed quiet. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I had learned that silence could be its own kind of power. Let the evidence speak. Let the courts decide. Let the consequences unfold. My voice would come later, when it truly mattered. 2 weeks after the arrest, Junior came to visit. He had been my rock through everything. He had testified to what he had witnessed 5 years ago. He had helped me organize documents, coordinate with lawyers, manage the chaos. But today, he looked troubled. Mama, I need to talk to you about something. What is it, baby? It is about Marcus. I felt my chest tighten. What about him? I went to see him, at the jail. Why would you do that? Because I needed to understand. He is our brother, Mama, half-brother. I needed to know who he was. I sat back, processing this. And what did you learn? Junior was quiet for a long moment. He is not like Reginald. He is angry, yes. Bitter about being abandoned, about being kept secret. But he is not evil. He is lost. Lost does not excuse what he did. No, it does not. But Mama, he did not know Reginald was going to break into your house. He thought they were just going to file the documents legally. When he found out Reginald's real plan, he tried to back out. That is why he was with Reginald that night. He was trying to stop him. And you believe that? I do. The security footage shows Marcus trying to pull Reginald away from the door, trying to get him to leave. He was not there as an accomplice. He was there as a reluctant participant who had second thoughts. I thought about this, about Marcus. This man I had never met, the product of my husband's betrayal. Even if that is true, he was still part of the conspiracy. He still accepted money stolen from me. I know, and he is not asking for forgiveness. He just wanted you to know that he is sorry, that he never wanted to hurt you, that he only wanted to know where he came from. And where does that leave us? Junior took my hand. That is for you to decide, Mama, but I thought you should know the full picture before you decide. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed, thinking about Marcus, about the boy who had grown up without a father, about the man who had been drawn into Reginald's schemes out of a desperate need for belonging. My husband had wronged him, had abandoned him, had kept him hidden like a shameful secret. And Reginald had exploited that wound, used Marcus's pain to fuel his own greed. Marcus was not innocent, but perhaps he was not entirely guilty either. 3 days later, I asked Patricia to arrange a meeting. Are you sure about this? She asked. He is still facing charges. I am sure. I need to meet him, face to face. The meeting was arranged at the county jail, a small room with a table and 2 chairs, guards outside the door. Marcus was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He was younger than I expected, 24 years old, but with eyes that looked much older. He had Isaiah's cheekbones, Isaiah's forehead. Looking at him was like seeing my husband's ghost. Mrs. Ashford, thank you for agreeing to see me. Sit down, Marcus. He sat, his hands were trembling. I want to start by saying I am sorry, for everything. I know that does not fix anything, but I need you to know. Tell me your story, from the beginning. And he did. He told me about growing up with a mother who spoke of his father in whispered tones, about receiving money every year with no explanation, about learning, after his mother died, that his father had been a successful man with another family, about the anger and confusion that consumed him. He told me about Reginald reaching out 5 years ago, about feeling, for the first time, like he had a brother, like he belonged somewhere. He told me about the plan, how Reginald had framed it as justice, as righting an old wrong, how Marcus had gone along because he wanted so desperately to be part of a family. And he told me about the night of the break-in, how he had realized, too late, that Reginald was willing to do terrible things, how he had tried to stop it and failed. I am not asking you to forgive me, he finished. I just wanted you to know the truth. I looked at this young man, this stranger who carried my husband's blood. Your mother, what was she like? The question surprised him. She was kind, hardworking. She never spoke badly about your husband. She said he was a good man who made a mistake. And you, did you think he was a good man? I did not know what to think. He was a ghost, a mystery. I spent my whole life trying to understand why he never acknowledged me. I cannot answer that question for you. I did not know about you until 2 weeks ago. I know. Reginald told me you did not know. He said it was better that way, that you would not understand. He was wrong. I would have understood. I might have even helped you. Marcus looked up, surprised. You would have. I am not a cruel woman, Marcus. Your existence is not your fault. Your father's choices were not your choices. If you had come to me honestly, told me who you were, asked for a chance to know your father's family, I would have listened. But instead, I let Reginald convince me to steal from you. Yes, you did. We sat in silence for a long moment. What happens now? Marcus asked. I do not know. You are facing charges. The courts will decide what happens. And after that, if I get out. I studied him, this lost young man, this product of betrayal and abandonment. That depends on you, on who you choose to be, on whether you can build something honest instead of taking what is not yours. I want to try. I want to be better. Then prove it, not to me, to yourself. I stood up. Goodbye, Marcus. Mrs. Ashford. I paused at the door. Thank you for listening, for seeing me as more than just the enemy. You are not my enemy, Marcus. You are a victim, just like me. I walked out without looking back. The meeting changed something in me. I had spent weeks building a case against everyone involved in the conspiracy, preparing to destroy them all. But now I wondered if destruction was really what I wanted. Some people deserved consequences. Reginald, Dr. Pemberton, the architects of the scheme. But others might deserve something different. A chance to be better, a chance to heal. The question was whether I had the strength to offer that chance, and whether they had the courage to take it. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The trial began on a gray morning in November. 3 months had passed since the night of the break-in. 3 months of preparation, depositions, negotiations. 3 months of watching my family's secrets spill out into the open. The courthouse was cold and imposing. I sat in the front row behind the prosecution's table, Patricia beside me, Junior on my other side. Claudette had flown in from California, the first time I had seen her in 3 years. Across the aisle, Denise sat alone. She was there to testify against Reginald, part of her divorce settlement. She would not look at me. And at the defense table, my son sat in a suit that no longer fit him quite right. He had lost weight in jail. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. He looked like a stranger. But then again, he had been a stranger for years. I just had not seen it. The prosecution laid out the case methodically. The forged second mortgage, the stolen valuables, the fabricated medical reports, the break-in with falsified documents, the conspiracy between Reginald and Marcus to take control of my estate. Forensic accountants testified about the money trail, how the $200,000 from the forged loan had been funneled through shell companies and into accounts controlled by Reginald and Marcus. Handwriting experts testified that the signatures on the loan documents and power of attorney papers were forgeries, skilled forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. Dr. Amara Oyalaran testified about my psychiatric evaluation, describing in detail how her findings of complete mental competency contradicted Dr. Pemberton's fraudulent report. And then I took the stand. The courtroom fell silent as I was sworn in. I looked at my son across the room. He would not meet my eyes. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Morrison, walked me through my story from the beginning. The dinner where Reginald told me to understand my place, the discovery of the forged loan, the stolen valuables, the letters revealing Isaiah's affair and Marcus's existence, the ambush with Dr. Pemberton, the confrontation where I revealed what I knew, the break-in. I told it all, calmly, clearly, without tears or dramatics. I had cried enough in private. This was not the place for tears. This was the place for truth. Mrs. Ashford, the prosecutor asked, why did you stay silent for so long? Why didn't you confront your son immediately when you discovered the forged loan? I paused, considering my answer. Because I needed to understand what I was dealing with. My son spoke to me like a stranger, like I was an obstacle to be removed rather than a mother to be respected. That told me something was deeply wrong. If I had confronted him immediately, he would have covered his tracks. He would have found another way to hurt me. So you stayed quiet on purpose? Yes, I stayed quiet so I could gather evidence, so I could understand the full scope of what he was planning, so I could protect myself. And do you feel you were successful in protecting yourself? I looked at Reginald again. This time he looked back. His eyes were empty. I protected my home. I protected my assets. I protected my independence. But I lost my son. I lost the family I thought I had. So was I successful? I shook my head slowly. I survived, but there is no victory here, only different kinds of loss. The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive, but ultimately futile. He tried to paint me as a confused old woman who had misunderstood her son's intentions. He suggested that the forged loan might have been a misunderstanding, that perhaps I had signed the documents and forgotten. I shut that down quickly. I have been evaluated by one of the foremost geriatric psychiatrists in the state. My memory is excellent. My reasoning is clear. I did not forget signing away $200,000. I never signed those documents because I never saw them until they were used to steal from me. He tried another angle, suggesting that my accusations against Reginald were motivated by bitterness over my husband's affair. You discovered that your husband had been unfaithful, that he had fathered a child with another woman. Isn't it possible that your anger at your husband transferred to your son? My husband is dead. I cannot confront him about his choices, but my son is alive and he made his own choices. He chose to forge my signature. He chose to steal my possessions. He chose to break into my home with documents designed to strip me of my autonomy. Those are his choices, not my projections. The defense attorney sat down. He had nothing left. Marcus's trial was held separately. As Junior had suspected, the evidence showed that Marcus had been a reluctant participant in the final stages of the conspiracy. The security footage from the night of the break-in clearly showed him trying to stop Reginald, trying to pull him away from the door. He was offered a plea deal, reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Reginald and full cooperation with the investigation. He accepted. But before the deal was finalized, I asked to address the court. Judge Eleanor Washington was surprised by my request. Mrs. Ashford, this is highly irregular. The victim does not typically address the court during plea negotiations. I understand, Your Honor, but I believe I have information that is relevant to Marcus Ashford's sentencing. The judge considered for a moment, then nodded. Very well, you may speak. I stood and faced the courtroom. I did not know Marcus Ashford existed until 2 months ago. He is the product of my late husband's affair, a betrayal I am still processing. When I first learned about him, I saw him only as part of the conspiracy to steal from me. I paused. But I have since learned more about his story, about how he grew up without a father, about how he was manipulated by my son Reginald, who exploited his need for belonging, about how he tried to stop the break-in when he realized how far Reginald was willing to go. I looked at Marcus, who sat at the defense table with tears in his eyes. Marcus Ashford made terrible choices. He participated in a scheme to defraud me. He accepted money that was stolen from my home. Those choices have consequences, and I am not asking for those consequences to be erased. But I am asking for mercy. Marcus is 24 years old. He has his whole life ahead of him. He was failed by my husband, who abandoned him. He was manipulated by my son, who used him. He deserves the chance to become someone better. I am not forgiving him. Forgiveness is a process, and I am not there yet. But I am asking this court to consider rehabilitation over punishment, to give him the opportunity to make amends rather than simply suffer. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Washington considered my words carefully. In the end, Marcus was sentenced to 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling. No prison time. He would also be required to pay restitution. A payment plan that would take years to complete, but would eventually return a portion of what had been stolen. When the sentence was announced, Marcus broke down crying. After the hearing, he approached me in the hallway. "Mrs. Ashford, I do not know how to thank you." "Do not thank me. Prove me right. Build a life you can be proud of. That is how you thank me." "I will try." "Trying is not enough. Do it." He nodded, wiping his eyes. Can I contact you sometime? Not now, but someday, when I have proven that I have changed." I thought about it. "Someday, maybe, but not yet. I need time." "I understand." He walked away, and I watched him go. This stranger who carried my husband's blood. This lost young man who had been used as a weapon against me. Maybe, someday, we would find a way to coexist, to build something from the wreckage. But that day was not today. Reginald's trial concluded 3 weeks later. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: forgery, fraud, conspiracy, attempted elder abuse. The sentence: 7 years in state prison. I was present for the sentencing. When the judge announced the verdict, Reginald showed no emotion. He simply stared straight ahead, as if he had already disconnected from reality. But as the guards came to take him away, he turned and looked at me. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something almost like regret. "Mama," he said quietly. I met his gaze. "You spoke to me like a stranger, Reginald. You treated me like an obstacle to be removed. You tried to steal everything I had built over 76 years." My voice was steady. "I stayed quiet when you told me to understand my place. I stayed quiet when you brought doctors to declare me incompetent. I stayed quiet through all your scheming. But I was not surrendering. I was preparing. And now you will have 7 years to think about what you did. 7 years to understand that your mother was never the weak old woman you thought she was." The guards led him away. I did not watch him go. The months after the trial were quiet. I had my house back. My savings, what remained of them, were protected. The forged loan was invalidated, the lien removed from my property. I had won. But victory felt hollow. Junior moved back to town. He bought a house 3 blocks from mine and visited every day. We had dinner together on Sundays, just the 2 of us, sometimes with Claudette on speakerphone from California. We did not talk about Reginald. There was nothing left to say. But we talked about everything else, about memories, about the future, about healing. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. It was from the prison, from Reginald. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. "Dear Mama, I do not expect you to read this. I do not expect forgiveness or understanding. I just needed to write. I have had a lot of time to think about what I did, about why I did it, about the person I became. I told myself I was justified, that Daddy's affair meant I deserved more, that your refusal to share meant you were the selfish one. But that was a lie I told myself so I would not have to face the truth. I was jealous. Jealous of the life you and Daddy built, jealous of the security you had, jealous of everything. And I let that jealousy turn me into a monster. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I could not see before. You were never the problem, Mama. I was. Your son, Reginald." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. I did not respond. I was not ready. Maybe I never would be. But I kept the letter, because somewhere beneath all the pain and betrayal, there was still a mother who loved her son, even when that son had become a stranger. 1 year after the trial, I celebrated my 77th birthday. It was a small gathering, Junior and his new girlfriend, Claudette, who had flown in for the occasion, a few neighbors, including Gladys, who had helped expose Reginald's schemes. We ate cake and laughed, and told stories about the old days. And when the guests had gone home, I sat alone in my living room, the same room where Reginald had told me to understand my place. And I let myself feel grief for the son I had lost, gratitude for the children who had stood by me, pride in the strength I had found, and something else, something quieter, peace. If you are watching this story, I want you to remember something. My son spoke to me like a stranger. He treated me like I did not matter. He tried to take everything I had built over a lifetime. And I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, not because I was afraid, not because I did not understand what was happening. I stayed quiet on purpose. Because silence gave me time to prepare. Silence let my enemies grow comfortable. Silence let me gather the evidence I needed to protect myself. My silence was not surrender, it was strategy. And when I finally spoke, my voice was the only one that mattered. Never underestimate a quiet woman. Never assume that silence means acceptance. Never believe that patience means weakness. Some of us are silent because we are watching, learning, preparing. And when we finally speak, the world changes. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for being here through every twist and revelation. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel. Press the like button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. And drop a comment. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if someone has ever spoken to you like you did not matter and what you did about it. I want to hear from you. I want to know I am not alone. Because none of us are alone. We are all connected by our struggles and our strength. Until next time, take care of yourselves, protect yourselves, and remember that your silence can be your greatest weapon. Use it wisely. This is Delphine Marigold Ashford, and my story is finally complete. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.